Hello, everyone. Welcome to a crossover edition of Locked On Indians. Before I introduce our special guest, I didn't get a chance to say this beforehand as we were prepping a little here, but when this network started and we brought on, I was one of the first few hosts, and I was looking through the list of hosts, and I saw a lot of hosts I knew, and to me, there was one host where I knew their work, and I was a little bit intimidated by this person, and that is our guest today, because I had known. I know you had that face, but it was one of those things that you were well known to me at the time. You were one of those people. You weren't one of the scout people, like the old Tigers host brought me in, and they were at scout, and the Angels host. But when I saw your name, I'm like, oh, I know Stacey Gotsulias. Hopefully, you got the name right there. Yep. So we have Locked On Yankees host Stacey here, and like I said, it's really nice just to have you on in general. And as you can tell with some of the laughing there, I didn't warn her about that, but yeah, when I saw the list of hosts, that was the first name. Your name popped for me. I was like, oh, okay, she's here. You lent credibility to the first group of hires in my mind. I don't know how you feel about that or how to take that, but I just thought I would share that along to you. That no, I mean, like I said, I was familiar with you before in baseball. I think I was already a follower, so when I saw you there, I was like, okay, maybe someday I'll get to talk to her. And here we are. It's nice to have this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Wow. Yeah, no, I didn't expect that.
Well, at least it's a positive, right? I'm not, it's a nice thing at the start, I'll say.
Yes, very nice. It's funny because in my intro, I mention, I'm like, oh, I've written at some places. You might know who I am because I haven't written anything in like 3 years. And, it's nice to know that people recognize my name, although I am the only person in the Western Hemisphere. And as far as I know, maybe the only person on Earth with my name. So, yeah.
I have the opposite problem. Common first, common last. My Google alert gets me a lot of things about someone who sells swimming supplies. That's most of my Google alerts anymore. But yeah, I think it's because we both come from a writing background. So we were writing about the same time. So that's why I was familiar with your work heading in. So, but with the Yankees and Indians playing this week, it seemed like the perfect time to have you come on, and we can talk about these two teams that I think right now both fan bases are having a measured and even keel approach to the start of these seasons. That's how I know we talked a little bit beforehand, and I lived in New York for 6 years, so yeah, I remember opening a Chase Bank account and basically the teller bragging about how they got CC Sabathia and that they were next going to steal Grady Sizemore from us. That was the conversation.
Oh, that's right.
Back because that was before his injuries, and he only had like 2 years left, and he was on a Hall of Fame track. But I have my own New York experience. I had a lot of fun. I think the fans get a bad rap just because there's so many of them. Like there's bad fans everywhere, just the size of that fan base. But how is it going for you out there with this season with the Yankees? I mean, it was a team with a high risk with that pitching staff. Like anyone who knows baseball knew that starting pitching staff, it had a potential to be the best in baseball. It had a potential to be not necessarily the worst, but bottom 10. I mean, and if it's not, hasn't been, I think, how you guys had hoped.
Right. But it's also been 15 games and it's only April 19th and people need to calm down, because I was saying this on my show when I was recording it earlier this week. I said, here's the thing. If this 5-10 stretch happened in July or August, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But because they're starting 5-10 and because it's been so long since they've started this badly, everyone's making it into a big deal. And I found it extremely amusing because ESPN had a tweet, this is the first time in 25 years that the Yankees are in last place. It's just, if it was September 19th, I would see that being a big deal, but it's April 19th. And even before the season started, I compared this team to the 2007 team. Big question marks in the pitching staff back then. And I mean, they had to go and get Roger Clemens by May because they were so bad. They were 22-29 at one point that year, and they still made the playoffs. And yes, we lost to Cleveland. I was at Game 5. It was not fun. But,
I moved to New York for that series. Like I was in the process of moving, so I watched it from my Brooklyn apartment as it happened.
Travis Hafner nearly killed me with a BP home run because my season tickets, I had Sunday plan, and they stuck me in the first row of the upper deck of right field, and I had never sat in that spot. Those balls come at you so quickly, even that far out in the old stadium, that I had to dive out of the way so I wouldn't get decapitated by Travis Hafner during BP. And I'm like, I'm going to go up to the concession stand and wait until this is over because I don't want to die tonight. Thank you. So
he could hit it hard. He was definitely probably the only one on the Indians you had to worry about at that point in time for that type of upper deck shot.
Yeah. Like I wish StatCast was around for some of those guys like him. Anytime Gary Sheffield fouled off a ball in 04 and 05. I mean, I don't know how he didn't kill people because he was constantly fouling off balls and hitting them seemingly. They always seemed like they were at least 115 miles an hour. But yeah, people are panicking too soon. I mean, it's possible the Yankees might not be so great, but there's a reason a lot of the major websites said they were going to win the division. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see them finishing 5th in the AL East, which is what people are acting like they're going to be doing. I don't see this team when the trade deadline happens, not doing something if they're not doing as well as they expected them to do. So I just think people are panicking too soon. They're overreacting too soon. And as I said before we started, I really wish some of these kids would experience a bad season, not this season, but at some point, some of these kids who, only know from the 90s on and their first baseball experience was the Yankees winning all the time. They need to experience a 1990 season like I experienced when I was 15 turning 16. It was, Andy Hawkins pitched a no-hitter and still lost 4-0. That was that season, like, a microcosm, but that was basically that season. So some of these kids need to experience an actual bad Yankee season, and they haven't done that yet. So just calm down.
Well, it's interesting here too, because being lazy, I pull up roster resource because it just has all the data there. And it's like, yeah, they're 5-10, but they're also 5-10 with like everyone underperforming outside of Garrett Cole. It's right. Like a 25 out of 26 players are underperforming right now, and they're 5-10. In some ways, that's a better record than one would expect. Like they might be, eventually it's going to even out.
Of course. Yeah.
The longest of seasons. You and I have been writing, podcasting on baseball for so long. We're like, this is the point where you're still walking. If this is a marathon, you're doing your fast walk. You're not even moving quickly yet. So as a team, everyone's underperforming and they're still 5-10. If anything, that should give, if you're just looking big picture, like, okay, when they start to perform, what's going to happen?
Right. And it's always people that I feel should know better. And I'm not even talking just about Yankee fans. I'm talking about Yankee haters who are reveling in this. You were talking about your friend being a Met fan. I love telling this story. Back in 2007, I worked for an EVP and his assistant who were really big Met fans. And as I said, 2007 was not a good start for the Yankees, and the Mets were like on fire. So the first, I would say 4 months of that season, they would come up to me at my desk and just trash talk. And I would sit there and take it. I couldn't say anything because the Yankees weren't doing well. And then when the Yankees started doing well enough to where you were thinking they're probably going to make the playoffs, and the Mets were having their little faltering at the end of the season, that Sunday I was watching Tom Glavine give up, 6 runs in the first inning to the Marlins on that last Sunday of the season. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, tomorrow's going to be so much fun. And I went into work that Monday morning. I walked in through the double doors at NBC, my coworker, Joe, who's also a Yankee fan, sitting there. And I said, isn't it a glorious Monday morning? And he knew what I was talking about. Didn't say a word to them. They come up to me at around noon. They're like, come trash talk at us. I said, my team's going to be knocked out of the playoffs by Cleveland. I can't trash talk with you right now. You have to learn. You can't trash talk until you win something. So all these Yankee haters, I'm bookmarking people's tweets. I'm remembering everything that they're saying this week because I want to put it in their faces in September and be like, remember when you were joking about this? Yes, there you go.
No, like I said, it's the lesser opinion, but for me as a Cleveland fan, I've always been more annoyed with the Red Sox than the Yankees because the Boston mentality of like, oh, we can't win anything. And it's like, I get the Red Sox didn't win for a while, but now they won some, but it's like everything else was winning. I grew up in Cleveland. I got one thing. I got one LeBron championship in my life. I'm like, winning is still winning. And you go back to that 2007 season where the Indians should have made the World Series. That might have been their best chance to win it all because the Rockies were there in the finals, which I know people are like, but they took the Cubs to extras. They should have never even been in that World Series with their injury. I've talked about like many times. The reason this team tries to do the bare minimum to make the postseason is because 2016, they go against the Cubs after they lost their number 2, 3, and 4 starters to injury. Like they were beat up beyond repair. And then the year they set the record for most wins in a row, they get knocked out in the first round. So their whole mentality has been shaped by that. But that season, they were up 3-1. They lose to Boston. There was the other year we were up like 2-0. And then in Game 5, Pedro Martinez pitches like a perfect 7 innings of relief. It doesn't count as a perfect game because he came in late. But it's like the Yankees, they knocked us out a few times here. But at the same time of it, it's like they haven't really gut punched the Indians. Whereas both of our franchises have been gut punched a few times by the Red Sox. So I think
what about 2017 for you? Because 2017 surprised the hell out of me because, especially the way the first 2 games went in Cleveland, especially after Game 2, what happened with Girardi not challenging and then the grand slam and the Yankees were up by so many runs and then Cleveland comes back and it was just like, oh my God, there's no way they're coming back in this series. And I remember Cleveland did really well against them in the regular season. And I just assumed Cleveland was going to kick their ass. Like really, I just assumed it was going to be a sweep. And then when it got to Game 5, I mean, I was nervous, obviously, because I didn't expect them to even make it to a Game 5. And then Didi Gregorius hits his first home run. And I'm thinking, okay. And then he hits the second home run. And I'm thinking, are they going to actually do this? And I just want to know from your perspective, like, were you expecting the Indians to just roll over them after those first 2 games?
That has always been like a sore one for me, like in a way, because it's not even about what the Yankees did. It's the fact that their best pitcher down the stretch was Carlos Carrasco by far that year. And for some reason they decided to only have him pitch 1 game. Right. And and Bauer pitched well in the first one. Don't get me wrong, but he got lit up in the second one and he was not by any means there. And I know there were a lot of people out there who Trevor Bauer is this and that. Trevor Bauer was a league average pitcher outside of 1 year in Cleveland. He was a 2 to 3 win pitcher. He was good. And the best thing about him was he was always healthy. He had 1 great year. The next year he came, and of course that's the year he got hurt. And then the next year he comes back. He wasn't pitching well before he got traded to the Reds. And he's only had like 2 like sublime years, like however you want to measure it. He's not been that guy all along. So when we talk about Trevor Bauer in that era, he's not the Trevor Bauer of now. Right. Carrasco was much better. And to this day, that's what hurts. It's like Carrasco had been arguably better than Kluber down the stretch. And then we find out later on that Kluber has a back injury and you're having him start all those games with a back injury. It's like you're arguably your best pitcher for the last month and a half gets 1 start in that series. And to me, that's, as you can tell, I haven't let go of this. I can still pull all of this information up because that wound is still fresh to a degree, because it's like, start Carrasco, just let him pitch twice. And I mean, in my memory, maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I feel like he actually pitched well in his 1 start, that it was a solid performance in Game 3. And that when things came off, it was not due to him, that it was a bullpen, or maybe it was the Indians did nothing. I can't remember the specifics. Like this, in my defense, September 17th is when we had our first child. So it's like, right. It's not like Game 1 or Game 2. It was right there. So it's like this, I was watching those games, but the very specifics of them kind of go away outside of just my anger of like, why is Carrasco not pitching? Why did we have Kluber out there with the back injury? But yeah, that's that series, like the whole thing with the Astros and the cheating and that, like, I don't get as up in arms, because at least I can sit back and be like, well, if they did cheat or whatever was going on. But that Yankee series, I was like, this was just bad management, like just at a very basic level. And that's where I like, you can tell anyone who's listening to this right now goes, he just needs to let it go. He just needs to stop thinking about that postseason. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was going to be their year. That was the one where I was feeling the pitching was at its peak. Everything was coming together so well, and then not so much.
Well, for us, I mean, I was just so shocked that they won in the first round and then made it to a seventh game that I was just so excited they did that because no one was expecting the Yankees to do that in 2017. And then you come to find out everything that happened in 2017. And now I'm just like, really? Like, really? But yeah, I mean, I know people like to bring up, sorry, I have a cat on me right now.
Oh, it's okay. Mine are both over here. They're
Okay.
staring at me as I record. So they
She's like,
could,
hi.
mine could join at any moment.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know. That was one of my favorite years, I would say, of the 2010s. And I know a lot of people love to bring up the fact that it's so funny. Oh, the Yankees didn't even make a World Series in the 2010s, and it's for the first time in 100 years. I'm like, yeah, for the first time in 100 years. How many other teams can say that? Like they're making it like it's a bad thing, you know? So funny.
Yeah, the Indians did make it to only one, and this is easily their fourth best run as a franchise. This is my like worthless fact time. Like out there, like I've always talked about something on the show that like gets overlooked as Cleveland fans is like the one time that the team was dominant in the late 40s and early 50s and the time they won their last World Series. The one thing they did was, and the thing I'll always be proud about a Clevelander, as a Clevelander about it's like the NFL, they broke the color barrier, they broke the American League color barrier, and they broke the manager color barrier. Well, the only reason we were really good in the 40s and 50s and why we challenged the Yankees is we broke that color barrier, and then we went for so much. Like Satchel Paige was first with the Indians. There's a mammoth first baseman named Luke Easter who had this, who joined like in his late 20s, early 30s, and if he doesn't kind of if he had kept his career going one more year, they might have even won more games in that 54. Right, 54. Well, someone's going to get mad at me if I get the year wrong. I believe 54 was the year of the Mays catch where they set the win record. Like. They were good because they integrated. Like that was the greatest run in team history was because they were willing to be a progressive team and other places weren't. And like I said, that's always a thing I like. But, you know, the point of it is they didn't make it to another World Series till 95, right? I'm not good with the years, but it's like 54 to 95, no World Series. Where people want to rag on the Yankees because they didn't get there once, while the Indians were 50 years between appearances. So,
right.
That's good perspective. Before I bother you with a few more questions, chance to talk about some Indians on the Yankees and expectations for a short series, I should do a quick break and talk about our sponsors today. I'm going to too many tabs open. There we go. So this episode is brought to you by 1010, a capsule collection of diamond rings that are responsibly sourced, limited edition designs at fair price points. 1010 is an exclusive collection of 10 creative styles of diamond rings designed by 10 of the most distinctive designers working today. Rings sure to bring joy into her life. Using only diamonds responsibly sourced from Botswana, 10 female design masters have each produced a uniquely beautiful ring, ideal for engagements, Mother's Day, or simply a beautiful conversation piece. They're the perfect way to bring light into her life. They're available now through Mother's Day only on BlueNile.com. Just search the words 10 by 10. The collection features high quality, fine jewelry. I have problems with words sometimes. Fine jewelry that will surprise and delight and fairly priced so you can give her something special and truly meaningful. If you're on the hunt for the perfect unique ring she'll treasure forever, you're definitely going to want to check this out. This won't be around for long, so find them now by searching the words 10 by 10 only at BlueNile.com. And honestly, my big takeaway, I like that it's female designers making the ring. Like that, I think is a very smart thing that they should be mentioning a lot. So if you're looking for something, go check that out at BlueNile.com. And then, I've talked about Rock Auto many times on the show. Instead of going through and doing the ad read here, I know nothing about cars. I can navigate the Rock Auto site. I think it's a great place for people to go, be an advocate for yourself. Make sure that when you go and you have an issue with your car, that you're not getting hosed. I have had that experience where I know I've gone and someone is overpriced and oversold me a piece. Rock Auto is a way to make sure that doesn't happen to you. You can find, they have all the parts you'd need, easy to find. And when you do go to Rock Auto, if you are going to make a purchase there, make sure that you tell them Locked On sent you in the how did you hear about us. You could write Locked On MLB. You could write Locked On Indians or Locked On Yankees. You could do any of the Locked Ons. Just let them know that we sent you. It's a great tool to have for yourself. Family-owned business. one central location, keep the prices low. Go check it out for yourself today. rockauto.com. Make sure that you write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us section. And then one last note, we have a big amount of NFL draft content right now on the site. I'm sure with the New York teams, especially if someone's a Jets fan, they're picking 2, the Giants are at 11. And if you're a Cleveland fan, drafts are a national holiday pretty much. So make sure to check out our NFL draft coverage from all angles, including the Ultimate Mock Draft Podcast 2021 presented by Odyssey. So go check out the NFL draft. And I follow the draft dudes, so I can just personally say, go check it out. It's worth your time. Joe's a great dude over with them. So yeah, like I said, that's honestly a thing. Like, I mean, I grew up to the point that before my writing job was writing about the baseball draft, because I'm that type of sick individual where I grew up in Cleveland, and that's what you got excited for, was drafts and what was going to happen. The highest draft pick the Indians have had in the last decade is actually on the Yankees. Managed to turn it back around. Clint Frazier is a guy that, I mean, so many Cleveland fans wanted to trade Clevenger for him straight up last year. He's almost a folk hero, even though he hasn't really had that breakout yet. Honestly, Giovanni Urshela, who I was not a fan of, I'll be honest. That was a miss on me, but I don't think anyone had expected his bat to blossom the way it has. Those two players, I'm just curious to see what the take is from, the New York side of things when it comes to Urshela and Frazier.
Well, Urshela, I mean, came out of nowhere. They got him from the Blue Jays for money, and, he didn't think anything of it. And he was one of those guys, 2 seasons ago, when everyone kept getting injured and the Yankees needed replacement players, and all these guys stepped up in different ways. And he was one of those guys. And, he even kept doing things. Like, we just thought maybe it was like it's a 2019 thing and it's not going to continue. And he's struggling a bit this year, but like you said earlier, everyone's struggling this year so far with the Yankees, except for Garrett Cole. I mean, what a pleasant surprise out of, I love when things like that happen where, I think some people were actually joking when the Yankees traded for Odor a couple of weeks ago. They're like, oh no, is this going to be another like Gio Urshela thing where he's going to come out of nowhere and start hitting the ball? That has not happened. But I like what Urshela does for us. It's very fun to watch him. I mean, he's not the best defensive player, but he'll make a play, once every couple of games where you're just like, how did he do that? As for Clint Frazier, I'm always advocating for Clint Frazier to play more. He got more playing time last year. He showed what he can do. He's struggling a little bit this year. And it was getting to the point where, Boone said the left field job is his. And then he started sitting him. And my thought was, everyone else isn't doing anything. So why are you singling him out? Why won't you keep him in? I love his bat speed. That's one of my favorite things about watching Clint Frazier play. Just every time he's up, I just can't even believe that he can swing his bat that fast. I think he needs more playing time. I think it will help him to become a more consistent player. And I don't understand what the Yankees are doing, but I'm always pulling for Clint Frazier. I think I've mentioned him about 1,500 times on my show. I really like him a lot, and I just want him to do well.
He's one of the 5 fastest bats I've ever evaluated as a draft prospect. Even like that was just, and the thing with him in Cleveland was honestly like his stock dipped, and then all of a sudden he like learned how to be patient. Like he could adapt and learn. And he's one of those guys, I feel like what they're doing in some respects is like literally the worst way to handle him. Like he is not a guy who, I'm not, saying anything about him as a person, but I think he's a guy who needs to play every day and doesn't need to you don't want to press him. He's not the guy who's going to like respond well to, hey, you're going to play every day. Nah, I'm going to say that, but you're going to take it away. It seems like they have, in some regards, the Yankees have handled him, at least in my opinion, almost as poorly as one can. Like he just needs to be left alone and put out there.
Oh yeah, I agree. It drives me crazy. It really does. I can't stand it. I hate the way they try it, because I even said it before last season and before this season. If you're not going to play him every day, then just trade him already. Stop jerking him around and stop doing this to him, because he's right now in the prime of his playing time. And this is when he's really going to break out, if he's going to break out. And you can't have a player break out if you're not going to play him. That's not how it works. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's him and Austin Meadows were like the two guys who came up together in Georgia. They were those two draft prospects together, and they both got traded from the organizations. And Meadows luckily has gotten the chances, and Frazier, it's just, well, I mean, I think if they give him that chance, he'll break out. And I'm not saying he's necessarily going to be an all-star, but he should be at least above a league average bat.
Oh yeah.
In terms of other Cleveland players, it hurts to ask about Corey Kluber because in many regards, he's one of my favorite players. Carlos Santana is my favorite player of the recent Indians, but he's top three. Kluber, I know he was an emotionless cyborg to many, but he was just so consistently good. And I love the guys who, I mean, he didn't pitch 100 innings till he was 27, almost 28. Like he had to really go out of his way to prove it. It was a big risk. And to give him $11 million showed that a lot of teams were interested in him. Is there is the thought around there that this is going to be lost money? Is there some hope or thought that, Matt Blake, the pitching coach, knows him about as well as any organization outside the Indians? Is there still kind of a hope that he's going to get it together?
I think so. I think the everyday fan doesn't think that because they're panicking about everything. But I feel like he just needs to get going and he should be fine, because all I'm really worried about with him and Tyone is that they stay healthy. Which is, that was the one thing I was worried about when the Yankees got the two of them and let Tanaka go. And I wasn't worried about Paxton because I figured he'd be hurt again, and he is. I feel really bad about that. And I wasn't really sad to see J Happ go. No offense to him. But I was worried that they were taking a risk with two guys that they were going to slot into their 2 and 3 slot in the rotation. Cashman was talking today. They're expecting Severino to come back probably June or July. So as I was saying earlier in the show, if things take a turn sideways, even Severino coming back is almost like you're trading for a player if he comes back and he's okay. But I really feel like Corey Kluber, at least from what I've read, because I know him from him pitching in Cleveland, but isn't he the type of guy that kind of starts slow and then it kicks in for him? And at least I thought I read that about him. So I'm not really worried yet. I mean, it's April 19th. I'm not worried yet. As
He's
I said,
one of those guys who would be, kind of steady and solid throughout. He didn't necessarily, he wasn't in one of those groups as we're talking about Bieber and those great stats as what he's done as a starter. Like for all of Kluber's dominance, like he wasn't one of those guys who came out house of fire,
right?
For sure in those first few weeks.
Yeah, I'm not worried yet. I'm not really worried about anyone yet. Because as you said, so many of them are underperforming right now. It's like the majority of the team's underperforming. I mean, the bullpen's okay. There's some guys in the bullpen who are kind of but there are others that come out and they do their job consistently. Luke Voigt will be coming back. He was already working out on his knee. So he should be back in May. Zach Britton should be back probably late May, early June. So those are two reinforcements, at least offensively and in the bullpen. And that'll even help the rotation a little bit to have him back. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? It's 5-10. Oh no, but I'm not worried. Am I odd for being this way? Like, I don't know. I'm not worried yet. I'm really not. I've been watching baseball too long to get stressed out in the middle of April. It's just too soon.
No, I agree 100%. One more quick break in here, just so before we get to a final bit on the show. Our final sponsor, just to mention very quickly here, is betonline.ag. As I like to do on the show, I go and just pull up the lines for tomorrow's game. Not surprising after last week's Carlos Rondon versus the Indians near perfect game. The Indians are not favored in that matchup. And with Zach Plesac getting absolutely lit up in his last start, he is getting a 1.5. On the New York side of things, the Yankees are favored against the Braves and Charlie Morton. Morton's the one getting a 1.5. So the Yankees game, you're seeing a 9 for total runs and 7.5 for the Indians. Remember to go to betonline.ag, sign up for an account if that is your thing. And when you do sign up, use the promo code Locked On to get a 50% bonus. It's the biggest percentage you're going to hear from any ad sponsor. I can guarantee that 50% bonus betonline.ag, the official partner when it comes to all things in this world gambling with Locked On. Remember, you can do casino, esports, all sorts of things. Go check it out for yourself today. That is betonline.ag, promo code Locked On. Oh, and then, because I'm really good at these ad reads, everyone can tell, April 9th through 26th, listen to the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 presented by Locked On and Odyssey, featuring analysis from NFL experts like Michael Irvin, Jason La Canfora. I'll pause so Browns fans can boo him. And Brian Balding. La Canfora was friends with an old organization, old leadership here. So there was a period of a lot of negativity. So
okay.
Probably, just adding my own extra thing. If you're a local fan, you know exactly what I'm meaning if you're a Cleveland fan. So our local experts for every team making trades and picks and picking the next stars for their team. Search the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 on the new Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. Odyssey is in your home audio for all sports, podcasts, music, and news that matter. And that's AUDACY. As a dyslexic, that name was very difficult. I was like, everyone confirm that is Odyssey, right? Yes, that is Odyssey. But to go back with this matchup this week, 4 games, for my listeners, the reason I'm kind of skipping over the Chicago series is, these matchups. I went in depth last week on them, and then you saw everyone pitch who's going to play. When you're looking at the Yankees-Indians matchup, to me, what I find interesting is, do we know yet who's even the Saturday starter?
I'm trying to think, because Cole started Sunday. They don't have anyone listed against the Braves yet, or at least they didn't this morning when I checked. It should be Kluber and then Tyone, right? Is that how they're doing it? I think
so.
And yeah,
because it means we're not going to see Kluber, and I'm sad about that. Not just because he's pitching poorly, but just, again, fan of him. I would have liked to have a chance to see him pitch, even if it's not in. I like seeing Carlos Santana, even though he's not with the Indians. You like to see the guys you like,
right? It's possible you could see an opener game again, like they did this week against the Rays, which didn't go well. I always feel, I felt this way in the division series last year. I don't know why Aaron Boone gets it in his head that he can manage like the Rays and do things like the Rays. I ranted about this for about a month after the division series ended, that game 2 should have been started by Masahiro Tanaka and not Davy Garcia, and then bringing in Jay Happ in the second inning. I don't know what, you were talking about Francona not pitching the people that you would have wanted to see in 2017. I don't understand why some of these managers, it's like they change their way of managing in the playoffs. And it's like, what are you doing? Do what you did to win all those regular season games and don't change things up. Like when Buck Showalter didn't bring Zach Britton in the AL wildcard game, what was that, 2016 against the Blue Jays? And everyone watching that game was like, what are you doing? Why is he still in the bullpen? What's the matter with you?
Well, it wasn't a save situation, right? Like, it was the old logic, we'll leave our best pitcher on the bench because it's not a save situation.
This is a winner takes all, let's go to the first round sort of thing. And what were you thinking? But I feel like, the managers who change their philosophy from regular season to playoffs in such a way that it's almost as if they're managing a different team, they're going to screw things up for their team in that round. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
You become such a creature of habit over 162 games to the one time I've seen it work well was to give, sometimes I'm rough on Terry Francona, and he's a great manager. A little too old school for me, but the one time he didn't go old school was that year, the 2016 season, where he just rode the bullpen and he was very smart and went to it early, and everything he did there was advanced analytical thoughts. He threw out the old school, went new school. That's the only time we've seen it. But for most of these guys, you're so used to something that to change it on these players it always struck me as a risk to do that. Why are you rocking the boat in that situation?
Especially Jay Happ came out and said he didn't feel comfortable not starting a game. Why would you do that to him in the playoffs? He was already having issues pitching. I just don't.
And the Indians have a lineup that's better against lefties than righties. I know, like, in that postseason, and that's part of the fun with this. I'm kind of curious to see how Bieber is going to pitch in his chance at a revenge game after essentially having one bad game last year, and it managed to be against the Yankees in the postseason.
Right. Yeah, that was. What did you think about the wild card series? I mean, I know, it was a shortened season and things were different, and they were pulling out all these things like the 7-inning doubleheaders. I don't mind those.
I don't mind those either.
I just, some people are advocating for every game to be 7 innings, and I'm like, okay, it's not Little League. Calm down. I don't like the runner on second in extra innings. I'd
rather have a tie, honestly. Like I said that on the show yesterday. I'd rather have like either hockey system or a tie. Like, if you're going to be that worried about injury,
pace of play, and yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Who also doesn't like that rule? David Cohn. We were talking about it. I don't know if I put that in my show, but yeah, no. And he kind of alluded to it while I interviewed David Cohn, for anyone who didn't know. And, it was the morning after they lost against, I think, Baltimore because of the runner on second. It was something, I think that's what it was. And it was just such a horrible game. And, I said to him, are you tired after last night's debacle? Because I think they traded runners on second. I think it went into the 11th inning. So both teams were able to score with the runner on second, and it made the game longer, which is even funnier because they were trying to do that to make it shorter. And yeah, no, he's not a fan. Not at all.
I'm not surprised by that one. I could definitely see that.
Plus, he's a pitcher. Why would a pitcher ever?
No pitcher's ever going to like that.
Right.
No, my whole thing last year, and it's the humor from, like, to take humor out of a awful pitching performance across the board is, like, Indians fans still are harping about how bad the offense was a year ago, and that's fine. And I get it. It's been not good to start the year, but, like, advanced metrics, they're actually have good numbers. They've just been incredible. Like, they're hitting the ball hundreds of miles well, not hundreds, over 100 miles an hour often, and getting outs. Like, they have been, anyone who follows in depth knows if you hit it over 100 miles an hour, the chances of it being a hit are high. Right. The Indians actually, I think, are like under 50% on balls hit over 100 miles an hour right now. They've been incredibly unlucky. But you look at that postseason series, everyone wants to talk about the Indians and their awful hitting. It wasn't the hitting. It was weirdly the pitching that failed that postseason run. It was not, 3 runs in one game, 9 in the other, and getting to the closer. It's, for as much as it was almost like, we're just going to show you the opposite of your biggest complaint. And I think, like I said, for me, just for me in general as an Indians fan, it's always more fun to watch Shane Bieber pitch. But I'm very curious to see, and he's the nicest, most even-keeled human. Like, I got to interview him in the minors when he was, he's a guy who was never a top 100 prospect. He might have only been in the Indians top 10 once. Like, he moved very quickly through the system. And, Indians fans might have heard this. Yankees fans might find this funny. Like, I was interviewing him once, and he saw his host family, and he's asked me if he could pause the interview because he wanted to go spend time with them. And I'm like, that's totally fine. So, like, that's the type of human being he is. Like, I'm sure he'd be okay with me sharing that story. But he's like, that's my, host family from my last stop. I have to go. And I'm like, go ahead. Like, that's the human he is. Mm-hmm. So you like him because he's a good dude, and B, he's just an excellent pitcher. But I'm very curious to see someone who really doesn't seem to have any nastiness in him as a, anger or anything like that, how he's going to pitch in a situation where I feel like he's going to go up against that Yankees team. And if there's ever a time where Shane Bieber is going to be a little bit extra motivated, it's this game. With as well as he's pitching, it's going to be a fun matchup, I think, for that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll see how the Braves series goes for the Yankees. I even joked on my show that I said, things aren't getting easier for the Yankees because they're facing the Braves and Charlie Morton, because even though Charlie Morton has a 4.76 ERA right now, he always seems to stymie the Yankees lineup for some reason. So it's not like they have an easy road ahead of them to stop this skid. And I even said that. I said, we might be looking at 5-11. That might be the low point. And then maybe things will improve, but we'll see.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it always comes down to, like, it's still the Yankees. If things are going poorly at the deadline, they can still not necessarily. I mean, I know this isn't the old Steinbrenner days. They can't necessarily buy talent, but they can still.
Not with Hal. No, Hal is.
They're probably up against it. I was like, in my mind, I'm always like, well, they can go trade for someone who's, go get their version of a Nolan Arenado, find the team that's willing to give away talent to save money. But I mean, maybe not anymore. I guess that's the weird thing. It's those days of all of those owners, Illich in Detroit, and with, all the sons do not want to spend their money. The fathers were willing, but the sons of those owners are now a little more tight-fisted. It's if Cohen follows through on what he says, I mean, he might be one of like 3 owners really willing to actually spend out there. I will say, when you're talking about Urshela earlier, it is kind of funny that him and Lindor were like besties in the minors, and now they'll both be in New York and able to, like, in my mind, I am picturing a buddy sitcom where those two are like living together and playing for opposite teams. And if it doesn't exist, I really think MLB needs to get on doing this, and they can steal my idea and not credit me. But I think that those are 2 very likable stars with a odd couple-ish team situation. So MLB, if you're hearing, please steal my idea. Let's have an odd couple Mets Yankees type of show. I think this is the way to go to market your young talent in the biggest city in the U.S. Let's get that done.
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
I mean, I would watch it. It'd be entertaining to do. I understand you can't have them as actors because they're playing in the season, but just record season. Let's get them sitcom training. I feel like Lindor with that smile would be a natural actor, anyways. And then you could easily do multilingual stuff, really bring in other fan bases. I feel like this is could be a way for MLB to. I'm here, MLB. I also think they should adapt the giant sword thing that Korea did to bring more entertainment to their postseason. I feel like probably the 2 of us here on a podcast could do a little bit more to help market than baseball is doing for itself over the last decade.
Is it Korea or Japan where the guy dances after the game if he's the MVP of the game?
Oh, I can't remember.
Because I saw someone who was dancing. I think it may be Japan.
It could be. I remember the sword was with the Korean League. And now watch me be wrong. And if I am, I'm apologizing ahead of time, because I have that confidence that I'm correct, which means inevitably I'm wrong, and it's not. But my stance even then was like, no one can name the World Series trophy. I've held it because the venue I got married in had the person who had owned the Pirates when they won World Series. So when I looked at the trophy, they just left them there. They're still like at this venue. So I got to hold one of the 70s Pirates trophies, and the great humor to me. And I know it's in Ohio. So of course it's the Indians flag that someone ripped off at one point in time as a keepsake. But of course it is also, in terms of bad luck, it's the Indians flag is the only one without a keepsake there. That's fun world of it all. But I've taken your time for almost 45 minutes here. I just want to again thank you for coming on and indulging the flights of fancy on the Locked On Indians podcast today. Tongue-tied for a second. Can you tell people who are listening who are not familiar where they can find you on Twitter and anywhere else?
Twitter. I'm at Stace Gots, STACEGOTS, because my entire name is too long for Twitter. And that's basically it. I don't really write anymore. I was trying to get back into it, but I wouldn't even know who to talk to about that because it's been 3 years, but we'll see. I might maybe do some writing on my own and self-publish. We'll see. But I do miss writing about baseball, and I'm kind of itching to do it again. So we'll see.
I've been doing a little bit of that on my own, so I understand the not so fun of the self-publishing, but I think we'd all be better, if you were out there writing as well. So I will say that hopefully you'll get back out there. I have been Jeff Ellis. I want to remind everyone to check out Locked On Indians and Locked On Yankees. Remember to rate and review both shows. Download daily. That really helps us out. Tell a friend. Whatever you can do. It is a great thing for both of our shows. And for the next year, maybe to go Tribe.